It is chapter 5 time today. It is Friday. We're at the end of the week, and it's been our first full week of My Friend Walter. So I hope you're enjoying it. Next week, I'm aware it's quite a lot to listen to for 20 minutes each day, so I think next week we're going to go down to doing every other day. Okay, so I'll do Monday, Wednesday and Friday next week, and there should just about be enough time for work it out right to get through our final week as well. Okay, so chapter 5. Dr. Roderick came first thing the next morning, an old man with more hair growing out of his ears than on his head. Remarkable, he said, shaking his head as he came downstairs into the kitchen. She's bright as a button. Quite remarkable. And he patted me on the head as he passed by. You got us to take a cup of tea, your mother tells me, Bess. I nodded. Must have been something you put in it, he said, and everyone laughed except me. Little Jim squawked in his chair and a bit harder on the edge of his bowl. Still teething, is he? Mrs. Throckmorton, the doctor asked. He's got 6 now, said Mother proudly. 6 of his very own, said the doctor. Well, that's splendid. Splendid. That's more than I have now, you know. A fine-looking boy you've got there, Mr. Throckmorton. Make a good farmer by the looks of him. Father nodded. That's if there's anything left to farm, Doctor, he said. Hard times, eh? Said the doctor. Could be better, said Father. Still, you've got your health, and the doctor said, and that's the main thing. Without your health, you can't do anything. I suppose so, Doctor, said Father, but he did not sound convinced. The doctor sat down at the table beside me and wrote out a prescription. She's to take these 4 times a day, and she's to stay in bed, he said, and lots more of your tea, Bess. She needs lots of liquids. I smiled weakly. Bess has got a bit of a cough, Doctor, said Mother. Been coming on for some time. She was coughing all night last night, weren't you, dear? Better have a look at it then, whilst I'm here, said the doctor. And he got me to say, ah, and put a lolly stick on my tongue, and peered deep into my mouth. He had lots of little purple veins all over his nose. Looks healthy enough to me, he said after a moment or two. Need some of your own medicine, perhaps, Bess. A dust from the hay I shouldn't wonder. A good cup of tea will help. He smiled at me, and sure enough his teeth were far too white and too even to be real. I'd never noticed before. Still, I thought, there's not many people who have to admit having false teeth. Gran would die if you ever mentioned hers. Father accompanied the doctor to the door. I've got to go to the bank this afternoon, he said, so I'll pick up the prescription when I'm in town. Soon as you can, said the doctor, and he was gone. Mother sent me upstairs a few minutes later with Gran's breakfast tray. As I went past my room, I noticed the door was open. I always shut it to keep Hump off my bed. Someone must be in there. I could see a shadow on the floor by the bed. Someone was sitting on my bed. Walter had come back after all. I put the tray down on the floor of the passage and rushed in. But it wasn't Walter. It was Will. He was sitting cross-legged on my bed and was reading Walter's letter. Hump was on the bed beside him. Well, little sister, he said, waving it at me. What have you been up to then? And who is this W.R. who wrote this letter? I'd forgotten to hide it away. What a fool I'd been. What an idiot. He picked up the bottle and opened it. Smells of mint, he said, and it's one of my bottles from my lab. So it was you messing round down there, wasn't it? I said nothing because there was nothing I could say. I thought so. But why? That's what I want to know. You've never showed any interest in chemistry before, have you? Something's going on here, Bessie, and you better tell me, else I'll take these downstairs and show them, and I don't think you'd want that, would you? You've got no right to be in here, I said. It's my room. I don't come in your room, do I? I only came in to find out what Hump was up to, he said. I saw him whining and scratching at your door. Thought that it was a bit funny, so I opened the door and let him in. He came straight to your table and started sniffing at this letter. Don't suppose I'd have noticed it otherwise. Now, what's it all about? You can tell me. You can trust me. I promise I won't tell. Cross my heart I won't. You wouldn't believe me anyway, I said. You just think I was telling stories. You always think I'm telling stories. I was playing for time. I'd run out of ideas. I'd promised Walter I wouldn't tell anyone about him. He'd kept his side of the bargain and I'd kept mine. He was my secret friend, and and like he'd said, they'd think I was mad if I told them about him, and it could finish Gran off for good if she ever found out there was a ghost living with us in the house. Luckily, Humph chose this moment to take matters into his own hands, or pause, I suppose. He sprang off the bed and made for the open door, and Gran's breakfast tray outside in the passage. He had his nose in the toast before I could stop him. I ran after him and shouted to him to get off, which he did, but so clumsily that he blundered all over the breakfast tray, sending everything scattering and crashing in all directions. As I lunged for him, he fled, tail between his legs, with a piece of toast still in his mouth. He met Mother and Father coming up the stairs. "What the dickens is going on up there?" Mother said as the tea ran across the floorboards and began to trickle down the stairs towards her. As you can imagine, I was in a very difficult position. To blame Will would have been like waving a red flag to a bull. He would have been bound to tell everything about them there and then, just out of spite. So I blamed Humph instead. "It was Humph," I said, starting to pick myself up. "He ran right into me, knocked me over. I couldn't help it, honest." I peeled a piece of toast off my elbow. "You all right, dear?" said Mother, running upstairs with Father close behind. "I've said time and again that dog should be shut out the back. She was helping me up. It's dangerous for Gran. She's always tripping over him. And he licks little Jim like he's a lollipop. It's not healthy. And he's always the wrong side of every door. He should stay outside." "What's the matter?" It was Gran calling out from her room. "What's going on out there?" "Nothing, dear," said Mother. "A little accident, that's all. No one's hurt. Don't worry, we'll bring you your breakfast in a minute." Will had said nothing so far, but I thought the danger was over. But then he saw his milk jug. It was the milk jug that made him do it. He told me as much later on. Miraculously, it was the only thing that was broken. But unfortunately for me, it was the milk jug Will made in pottery class at school, and he'd given it to Mother for her birthday only a few weeks before. He was very, very proud of it. There were tears in his eyes as he bent down and picked up the pieces. He looked up at me, and I knew right away what he was going to do. "Got something to show you, Father," he said, "in Bessie's room. Come and look." And he got up and went into my room. Mother and Father followed him. I couldn't stop him now. "Look," I heard him say. "There's this letter, and this—" I dared not go in. I didn't want to look. "What letter?" said Father. "What are you rabbiting on about?" "But it was here, Father," said Will, a rising panic in his voice. "On the bed, it was, honest. And there was this little bottle of stuff, and it was full of green stuff." My heart rose. I understood at once what had happened, and I knew instinctively who had come to my rescue. "What bottle?" I asked innocently as I went into my bedroom. Will was on all fours looking under the bed. "It was here. I know it was." "Getting as bad as your sister, Will," said Father, looking around the room. "Lives in a world of her own, don't you, Bessie? Always telling stories and making things up. Not like you to be fanciful, Will. Can't see any bottle. Can you, dear?" "All I can see," said Mother, "is that you haven't made your bed yet, Bess. You promised me you'd keep your room tidier. You know I haven't got time to clear up after you. Not now. Not with little Jim to look after. I'll tidy up that mess outside if you tidy up in here." And she went over to the open window. "Smells of Humph in here, and tobacco smoke," she said, sniffing the curtains. "You haven't been smoking, have you, Bess?" I shook my head. "It's Will that has a fag on the sly from time to time," said Father. "Isn't it, Will?" And he put his arm round Will's shoulder. Will opened his mouth to deny it, but he didn't even bother. No one would believe him, and he knew it. "Still, no great harm in that," Father went on. "We all have one or two when we're young, just to try it. But best not do it up here, Will. Not safe to smoke in bedrooms." "Don't you go encouraging him," said Mother. "It's not safe to smoke anywhere. It's a horrible habit, and it kills you." And then little Jim began crying downstairs, and she ran out. Will kept looking over his shoulder at me as he left the room. He was as much bewildered as angry, I think, though I know he'd have cheerfully killed me at that moment, given a chance. They were gone at last, and I was alone in my room. I coughed loudly 4 times, and my friend Walter appeared. He was leaning on the mantelpiece, the remains of a smile on his lips. He threw back his cloak. The letter was tucked in his belt, and he had the bottle in his hand. "One day that dog of yours will be the cause of your undoing, Bess," he said with a laugh, and he puffed purposefully on his pipe. I put my finger to my lips for fear we'd be overheard. "Where were you last night?" I whispered. "I called you and called you." "Your grandmother is well again, I trust?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm glad of it." He held up the bottle. "The elixir I discovered whilst I was a prisoner in the tower. Took years of work to perfect it. They allowed me to use a shed underneath the wall for my experiments. There is something to be said for imprisonment. It is a life without distraction and concentrates the mind most wonderfully. I administered this bottle to my friends and family, even my jailers, when they were glad of it." "Why didn't you come last night?" I asked. "I only wanted to say sorry. I didn't mean all those things I said. And I wanted to thank you for saving Gran like you did." "Sweet cousin," he said, putting his hands on my shoulders and kissing me on the forehead, "I cannot in truth be thanked for restoring the health one whom I myself brought so nearly to the point of death. You see before you a miserable fellow whose life was wasted in many fruitless schemes. They came to nothing, and through my own vanity too. In truth, I had hoped in my spirit life to improve myself, to mend my ways, but I see now my chapter is quite unredeemable. You were right indeed to scold me as you did, and you should not thank me now, cousin. I have repaired the damage I myself have caused, and even in so long I have placed you again under the threat of discovery. I had not thought to destroy the letter and the elixir. I had not thought they might be discovered, nor even how you would explain it if they were. I'm an old fool, cousin. I'm a blundering, vain old fool, the same as I ever was. Blame not your brother, dear Bess, for he is much perplexed by what has passed. In truth, I see him in something of myself as a boy, quick to temper and quick to tears, but he has a kind heart, and he will grow to a fine man. He's a pig, I say. Wasn't my fault his jug broke. It was Humph, and he goes and tells everyone like that. Serves him right. The dog again, said Sir Walter. That miserable cur follows me everywhere, even though I do not feed him any more. I had not thought a spirit has enough scent about him for a dog to follow. Probably the tobacco, I said. I told you not to smoke in the house, and you said you wouldn't. Indeed I did, my cousin, and I truly meant to keep my word. Walter took the pipe out of his mouth and looked at it ruefully. But I do it without thinking. 'Tis a habit of 300 years or more, chick, and not easy to break. For certain, it can no longer do me much harm. And he chuckled. Last night I thought you had gone forever, I said. Where did you go? To the river, for I had much to think on, and it's this fine place to do it, he said, and then he looked at me long and hard. I fear I must leave you, cousin. Whether it be the dog, the smell of tobacco, or your brother Will, were I to stay here, there could be little doubt that one day will be discovered, and that might prove grave indeed for your grandmother. I mean not to play on words, but it is apt enough. You know that I have come close to killing her once already. To stay would risk only a greater disaster. I shall meddle no more, sweet cousin. I had meant to stay, and do you and your family some service if I could, but I may not risk another day here. I must be gone from this place before it's too late. No, I protested, and too loudly. Walter held his finger to his lips. It must be so, chick. If I go now, our secret is safe and no harm is done. I have tasted again the sweet air of my youth, and I have found such a friend in you, dear Bess, that I do not wish to leave your side, nor ever to leave this place, but it needs must be. It is not safe to say, and besides, I have matters at home that call me back. Home? I said. What home? Why, the Tower, cousin. I delude myself if I think otherwise. The Tower is my home. I have no other. Am I ever going to see you again? I asked, fighting to hold back my tears. You know where you can find me, he said. If ever you have need of me, you have but to come, and I shall be there. I turned away from him and wiped my eyes. You should be brave. It is I that should weep, for it is I that must go. You have much to rejoice in here, a fine father and a loving mother, and a brother who also loves you, but who knows not yet how to say it or show it. Little Jim loves only his food, but I would wager you will be the apple of his eye as the years pass. He took my chin in his hand and lifted it. But I warn you, dear cousin, there are storms ahead. You'll have need of all your courage, so no more tears. Storms? I asked. He was speaking in riddles, as he often did. What do you mean? I fear you will understand that soon enough, but I can say no more. I shall meddle no more in your affairs. I will be with you, but in spirit only. I would fain stay with you, cousin, and protect you from all that lies ahead of you, but I may not. I belong no more to your world. I have plans afoot to help you. Indeed, they are already much advanced, but I see now that I have always been the cause of more harm in this world than good, however noble my intentions, and I confess they were not always so. You may fare better without me, cousin, than with me, if only you remember that storms always pass by and give way to clear blue skies. Mark me well and remember these words. Only have faith that all will be well, and it shall be also. Only believe the thing is, and it is. Believe it is not, and it is not. Count on it, sweet cousin, for it is true. We must bear all, and bravely too. He stepped back from me and wiped the tears on my cheeks with his cloak. I must be gone, back to London, but I do not think I should take the horse again. It is commonly thought that ghosts can fly, but they cannot, and so neither can I. How else may I come to London? Father's going into town in the car, and I can take you onto the station, I said. I did not try to change his mind, because I could see it was already quite made up. It was no problem to find a good excuse to go with Father to Exeter that afternoon. I needed to change some library books. It was a sombre journey. Father was very preoccupied and hardly said a word to me all the way. He wasn't concentrating much on his driving either. More than once we nearly ran into the car in front, and he even lost his way into the city centre. I prattled on as best as I could about Gran and Sally, but I could tell that he wasn't really listening to me. Walter sat in the back seat all the way, looking out of the window, and when we got to town, Father dropped us off outside the library. He had to go to the bank, he said, and he'd be back in an hour and a half. I was to wait for him on the steps of the library. We walked in silence through the streets of Exeter, Walter and I, down towards the station. When we got there, they said a train was due in a quarter of an hour. No one ever looks at the tickets at the barrier, not that we needed one. When the train came in, I opened the door of the first-class carriage. So Walter Raleigh ought at least to travel first class, I thought. I looked over my shoulder before I spoke. There were only a few people on the platform, and they were all busy. I could talk without fear of being overheard. How will you know your way in London? I asked. I have travelled often on the Underground, Walter said, though I do not like the press of people about me, and it's a convenient way to get about. It is unnatural, I think, for a man to travel like a mole, but I am accustomed to it now. Fear not, cousin. Tonight I shall rest in my bed in the tower. The doors slammed to the right and the left, and someone bellowed for me to stand clear. Farewell, sweet cousin. And my friend Walter, leaning out of the window, and he lifted his hand and kissed it. Think kindly of me, and often, I pray you. I could not bring my voice to say anything, but I waved and blew kisses until the train had vanished, and my friend Walter with it. You all right? It was a railway guard, and he was frowning at me, his cap on the back of his head. I've been watching you. First you walks along the platform and opens the door of the train, then you closes it, and then you talks like you were saying goodbye to someone, and then you waves goodbye, and now there's tears all over your face. It's like you were saying goodbye to no one. You sure you're all right? I nodded and walked away, fast towards the stairs. You on your own, are you? Where's your mum? He called after me. Where's your dad? I began to run. I think I ran all the way back to the library without stopping. I had a terrible urge inside me to catch the next train to London and follow him to the tower. I'd lost my friend, and I was going to be alone again. I didn't know if I was more sorry for him or more sorry for me. Either way, I was miserable. I was sitting waiting on the steps of the library for Father when I had an idea. If I couldn't have Walter with me, then I had the next best thing. I would find a book about him from the library and read it. That way I could find out more about him, and I could get to know him better, even if he wasn't there. The book I found had very small print and only one picture of him on the title page. It was of Walter Raleigh as a young man, but I recognised the way he stood, leaning on his cane, a half smile on his lips, his legs crossed. It was halfway through the first page when Father drew up. I could see at once that something was wrong. He was grey and drawn, and he said not a single word all the way home. I asked him what the matter was, whether he was feeling ill, but he didn't even reply. It was as if he had never heard me. I had to wait until we got home to find out what had happened. He walked through the garden with his arm around Mother, and then out into the front meadow beyond. With Will beside me, I watched and waited for them to come back. When they did, I could see that Mother had been crying, but she tried not to show it. I've got some bad news, Father said, and your mother says I ought to tell you. Well, here goes. We've got to leave the farm. We've got to sell up. What do you mean? Said Will. What do you mean, sell up? Nothing else for it, said Father. We can't pay the rent on the place, and so we've got to go. I've just been in to see the bank manager. He says we can't go on, not anymore, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so I'll be back with chapter 6 on Monday. I'm undecided. I might do half and half each day, so we've still got something each day, or I might do every other day, but I'll let you know on Monday when we read. Hope you're enjoying it. A bit of a sad ending to that chapter, so let's hope it lightens up a little bit in chapter 6. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye!